Now, our main focus tonight. It is a story about being disabled and what that means to different people. Jim Dickson is legally blind. He has done a fair amount of recreational sailing, but what he has undertaken now is a major enterprise. He is sailing solo across the Atlantic. That prompted William F. Buckley, the columnist, who is a very experienced sailor, to raise questions about Dickson's prudence and whether what he is doing should even be appropriately attempted by a blind man. Buckley thinks not. That, in turn, infuriated Mr. Dickson, who is presently in Bermuda, where his boat is undergoing some equipment repairs. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Here, first, is a report from Ned Potter.
People who know Jim Dickson say he wasn't just making an ocean voyage, he was going on a crusade. He wanted to prove that disabled people need not be limited. With the proper technology, he said, they can hold a decent job or even sail the Atlantic.
Any job where there's a computer, a blind person can do it and function completely independently. And there's a need to give those people a shot.
3 days out to sea, though, his technology failed him. His autopilot broke down, and he had to steer the boat manually through heavy seas here to Bermuda. Now his sailboat, the Eye Opener, is waiting for spare parts. His solo expedition, having raised $175,000, is running low on funding. The plan had been that the sailboat's high technology would protect Dickson from hazards.
I monitor readings from these instruments and record them on demand or automatically if they are out of tolerance.
A radar with an audible warning, a navigation system which reads satellite signals and gives readouts with a synthetic voice. In fact, when the autopilot broke, Dickson realized how little experience he had with the boat. He had never been alone on the open sea. He misread the radar in his exhaustion. As a storm approached, he was unable to distinguish its radar blip from that of an approaching vessel.
I was out there in that same time he was. And in fact, he was hove to and I kept sailing. And it's probably a good thing he was blind, because had he seen what he was in, he probably would have stopped right then and there. So, because it was probably rougher than they said here on shore and in the forecast.
The most public criticism of Dickson's crusade comes from no less famous a sailor than William F. Buckley, Jr. In a syndicated column, he wrote, "It is profane to suppose that a cripple can run, a deaf man hear, or a blind man see. God grant Jim Dickson safe passage, but do not make the mistake of supposing that he is helping the blind."
I'm afraid Mr. Buckley ought to go look at the dictionary. I don't remember the precise words, but Mr. Buckley seems to confuse the ability to see with the ability to think and act. I'm afraid his eyes work fine, but he has no vision.
Meanwhile, at marinas and yacht clubs around the Atlantic, experienced sailors talk of Dickson with a mix of admiration and skepticism.
If he's competent enough to get to Bermuda and go through some bad weather, there's a lot of people out there who are probably worse sailors than he is.
I would say the situation he was in was quite dangerous. My boat is a lot more able than his, and it was no place to be playing around.
How experienced a sailor are you?
I've been sailing for 17 years. There are a lot of things that I need to know. I think anybody who's been around the sea knows that she has an incredible ability to humble very quickly.
Dickson's advisors on this project had urged him to go ahead, but they had also urged him to be cautious.
And my feeling was at the time, I hope it doesn't all fall apart too soon, because there's no way you can make a trip that long without having things go wrong and having plenty of periods of panic. And sure enough, things went wrong, and he had his periods of panic.
He should have trained. He should have practiced. He maybe shouldn't have gone this year. He's leaving too late in the season.
The autopilot that failed is not exotic equipment. It's available to any sailor, and that's what left Dickson open to accusations that he was ill-prepared, even crazy.
If you think I'm crazy, you got to also say that I'm diligent and persistent and organized about it.
7 years in the planning, Dickson's dream now lies tied to a dock in St. George's, Bermuda. Will he be able to go on? And if he does, what will it mean?
I think everyone should pursue their dream, and I think Jim's doing it.
Jim Dickson says he's determined to make it to the English coast, even if he has to give up this time and try again. But he is now a man chastened, his purpose and his talent as a sailor questioned. He is, after all, one man, alone, in a very small boat, on a very wide ocean. This is Ned Potter for Nightline in Bermuda.
Jim Dickson and his critic, William F. Buckley, will both join us live when we come back in just a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ford.
Shellfish on the dinner plate or in a sea otter's stomach. That's the choice Californians face in a move to protect the otters. Tomorrow, watch ABC's World News Tonight.
Joining us now live from Hamilton, Bermuda, is blind sailor Jim Dickson. And in our New York studios, columnist William F. Buckley, who's written 3 books about his own sailing experiences, the most recent chronicling a 4,000-mile Pacific cruise he took 2 years ago with his son, 5 friends, and a crew. Bill Buckley, I know you to be a man who admires physical courage. What is it you're questioning about the Dickson Odyssey? Is it his prudence or the very nature of the sailing mission itself?
Well, I question the nature of it. As I wrote, I certainly hope that he has all the luck in the world and hope that he completes his passage. But in completing the passage, I simply question whether or not he is, in fact, helping the blind, which he widely advertised himself as doing. Certain things one can't naturally do when one is blind. I wouldn't take a blind person to the Grand Canyon or to a ballet. And for that reason, it seems to me people who know anything about sailing know that sailing is an experience which simply can't possibly be apprehended unless you can see.
Why?
And unhappily,
Why? What is it about sight that is so essential to that? I mean, can't you tell how a sail is luffing, for example, simply by virtue of having your hand on one of the lines?
Well, sure, you can do that. You can tell that a woman is beautiful, presumably by running your fingers over her profile. But that isn't why people go sailing. Name me one sailor who...
That isn't why people who can't see go sailing.
No, that's right. But the people who can't see have really no business sailing for the reason that they are simply engaging in a challenge. That challenge is unrelated to the experience of sailing. Why would you take a blind man to a ballet?
Because maybe he likes music.
Well, he can hear the music without listening, but the point is a ballet is to be distinguished from music because it is a form of dance.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've raised what is obviously the key question, and we have the man here who can answer it. Why does a blind man want to go sailing, Jim Dickson?
Well, first, it's a little nerve-wracking debating the world's most formidable TV debater, but the reason I chose to do it was because the attitude which Mr. Buckley has expressed is that attitude which keeps 500 million humans in circumstances akin to the 14th century. Frankly, no able-bodied person has the right or ability to define what I, as a disabled person, or any other disabled person can do. That's the point.
No, wait a minute. I'm not...
As for the sailing, Mr. Buckley, I got the boat to Bermuda without an autopilot. Have you ever done that?
7 times. But
Good.
To pursue the point, let me say,
Alone?
I don't mind what you do. It's completely up to you. This is a free country. I'm simply saying I think it is incorrect to suppose that by engaging in an exercise of this kind, you're helping blind people, because there's no way that you can make people who are blind unblind. I wish
that's not the purpose. That's not the intent. The problem with disability is not in the body of the infirm. The problem is in the mind of the able-bodied. You can't imagine how you could function at sea without seeing, because you lack that amount of imagination, and I don't mean to attack you personally.
Look.
Because you can't figure out how you would do it doesn't mean that you can tell me that I shouldn't be doing it.
Mr. Dickson, I don't see any reason to suppose that if I were blindfolded and went through the grueling learning experiences that you've gone through, I couldn't do exactly what
learning
you've done.
Is pleasure.
I'm saying that it's a futile exercise of your time to do something which seems to look God in the face and say, although I am theoretically blind, in fact, I am not blind. The purpose of...
No, I never said I wasn't blind.
No, but
I cannot see. I can also enjoy sailing. who are you to say that because I can't see, I can't enjoy something or do something?
Well, because I think it's self-deluding. If somebody's deaf and tells me he's enjoying the symphony very much, I say, no, you think you are, but you're not. Because sailing is a sport that absolutely requires...
Who are you to...
Well,
isn't the essence of individuality to listen to and accept an individual for what she or he says or does?
Ms. Dickson, I not only accept
not to impose your perception on it?
I not only accept you, I admire you very much. I'm simply saying you are mistaken in supposing that you are liberating a whole number of people who were born blind.
Well, hold on. Gentlemen, if you'll hold on for 1 second, gentlemen, both of you, please. I'm filled with admiration for you both and will not interrupt more than I absolutely have to, but we're going to take a break, and then we will continue our discussion in a moment.
The Detroit airline tragedy. The latest on its cause and reaction from Washington tomorrow on ABC's World News This Morning before Good Morning America.
He might have been president, but scandal brought him down.
Tomorrow, author Gail Sheehy's story about the fall of Gary Hart.
And Ron Reagan will be skydiving.
Tomorrow on Good Morning America.
Continuing our discussion now with Jim Dickson in Bermuda and William Buckley in New York. Bill, it does require a certain arrogance to be able to say to a man, because you are blind, you cannot enjoy this experience of sailing. Who are you to say to him that he can't enjoy it simply because he's blind? He says he enjoys it. There, ipso facto, he enjoys it.
Well, I'm a man of moderate sensibility. Milton did not enjoy his blindness, though he created some of the most beautiful poetry. George Shearing does not enjoy his blindness, though he creates beautiful music. Beethoven didn't enjoy his deafness. I'm simply saying that anybody who has sailed, who has eyes to see, knows that anybody who sails without eyes to see is undergoing an incomparable disadvantage. To say that he's enjoyed sailing is to say that you've enjoyed apple pie, though you have no taste buds.
No, but I mean, no doubt he is at a disadvantage. I think even Jim Dickson would acknowledge that he is at a disadvantage, and the only reason I'm not letting him speak for himself right now is that we have momentarily lost our line to Bermuda, but I hope it will be restored shortly. But the question I would raise is not, can he enjoy it as much as you enjoy it with all of your senses? Clearly, he can't enjoy it on the same level. But for you to tell him that he can't enjoy it seems to me to
Ted,
be...
it's against nature, contra naturam, to suppose that you can, for instance, go to the Grand Canyon and profit from that is an act of self-delusion. And all I'm saying is that for him to say, as he said, if the same helping hand is extended to hundreds of thousands of disabled Americans, it would make lives a lot easier, is simply incorrect.
Yes,
and it doesn't help people to say things that are incorrect.
Bill, forgive me. It always requires a pioneer of some sort. I mean, Lindbergh had to fly alone across the Atlantic. It is not something that I would have recommended to anyone else in the United States. He was taking his life in his hands when he did it.
You're making the classical mistake.
But by having, at least permit me to make the entire mistake and finish what I'm saying.
Sure.
Before Lindbergh did that, I mean, Lindbergh had to do that before the rest of us could benefit from his act of courage.
Don't you understand? What you're saying is that just as Lindbergh made it possible for millions of people to fly over the Atlantic, so Mr. Dickson's going to make it possible for hundreds of thousands of blind people to sail the Atlantic. But he's not.
But you see, what I'm suggesting, and there's Mr. Dickson back again. Yeah, I can, and Jim, I'll let you back in just 1 second. Just let me finish a point.
Okay, but I was down for 15 seconds.
Okay, it may well be that because of Mr. Dickson's accomplishment, and God willing, as you say, he makes it all the way to Portsmouth, it may well be that some organization then will provide the kind of money that will make the technology, which is now terribly expensive, that is helping him do what he's doing, available at much lower cost to far more people. Would that not be a benefit?
What about people who can see, who don't have enough money to sail? Shouldn't we worry about them?
Just a minute.
The point was not the sailing.
The point was not... I took on the sailing because there's a need to shake the attitude that says disabled people can't do this, that, or the other. When I first heard that article, I was kind of angry. Of course I can't see. But Mr. Buckley, you are a lot blinder than I am because you can't imagine what a person could do in my circumstances.
You're using a metaphor.
You're not capable. You're not capable. You've got blinders on. You're sitting there saying, hey, you can't do what I've already done.
No,
then you're saying I couldn't enjoy it.
No, please don't tell me what I said when it isn't what I said, and I'm here to contradict you. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm saying there's no point in it. That's what I'm saying.
You're saying that I'm not trying to say blind people ought to all get on sailboats and go sailing. I'm trying to say that able-bodied people should not define what a disabled person can do. You believe in individualism.
No, I'm not defining
A person needs to challenge themselves, needs to reach beyond themselves, whether you're able-bodied or not. When you're disabled, I grew up with people telling me I couldn't go to college. I grew up with people telling, and it's just as ridiculous to say I can't sail a boat.
For all I know, you got to want to walk on a tightrope across Niagara Falls next year. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it. No, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm simply saying this is not a prudent use of your time, and it doesn't help the blind community.
But it has established the debate.
But not by doing silly things.
It has established the debate. The fact is that the biggest obstacle to disabled people having a free life is the attitude of the able-bodied that says you can't do that.
I don't agree with you.
That's
preposterous. What have you or I ever done to help a deaf man hear Mozart? Nothing. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing I can do about it.
Wait a minute. There's a word for what that kind of argument is, and I think it's silly. The point isn't. You totally missed a point. I didn't name the boat Eye Opener because I wanted medical science to open my eyes. I named the boat Eye Opener because I want you to open your eyes and realize that the potential within me as a blind person is as vast as it is within you, an able-bodied person.
I'll tell you what,
I don't define what you can do. You shouldn't define what I do.
Jim, hold on one second. Bill, please make your final comment, because we're going to take a break, and then I want to come back and just ask a few questions of Jim Dickson about his plans for the next few days.
Well, what I'm saying really is that Mr. Dickson is engaged in a metaphorical dimension. He is trying to say to himself and to people who wish him well, who include me, that he is substituting for the genuine experience of sailing. My answer, he's not. He is afflicted by blindness. I wish him all the best. I wish him all the luck in the world. I will pray for him. But I don't believe that any man of judgment who has any experience in the sea can hope to assume that he's going to emulate the kind of experience that the sea uniquely provides.
All right. I'm going to have a few more words with Jim Dickson, and we will do that in just a moment.
On Monday Sports Night, Olympic great Rayford Johnson, sportscaster Roy Firestone, plus an exclusive interview with Denny McLean and more, next on ABC's Monday Sports Night.
With us once again now from Bermuda, Jim Dickson. Jim, I want to take you on your own terms now. Just talk to you as a sailor and raise some questions that were... Pardon me?
And as a person.
Well, I mean, I'm going to talk to you just as
I'm not aiming it at you, but you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying, but I want to talk to you just as a sailor now and question your experience. There was a story written about you in the Washington Post over the weekend that suggested, A, you'd never used a sea anchor before. You misread the blips on your radar, thought you were surrounded by other boats when, in fact, they were squalls. You let your engine run out of oil. You didn't check it. You didn't change it. Well, I mean, I'm just telling you what the story said. And the other thing is that you didn't set your tiller and that you were floating around there aimlessly for a while. In other words, a number of issues that suggest that you are not an experienced enough sailor to do what you're doing right now. Your response?
My response is that I got the boat to Bermuda without an autopilot, without a sat-nav, hove to for 2 days in a very strong storm. That, if people can't accept that as a fact, then I'm never going to change their mind. The Freedom 36 is a wonderfully strong boat. It, like all of the equipment on the boat, were off the shelf. My purpose wasn't to become a superstar. My purpose was to agitate the prejudice that says because you're blind you can't sail.
Jim,
you can't be a lawyer.
Excuse me, we're almost out of time. I need to know, and I need to ask you, are you going to continue? Do you know yet?
We'll make a decision at the end of the week. I need more money because I don't have the equipment It's a question of weather and time, and I'll decide on Friday.
Okay, but if you've got the equipment, you got the money, you're going to move on?
Yes, okay. And the weather's right.
Jim Dickson, I thank you very much. Bill Buckley, I thank you very much. It was a joy having you both with us. And Jim Dickson, Godspeed, whatever your decision. We're just delighted to welcome back an old friend tonight, our affiliate WJZ-TV in Baltimore, starting this evening on WJZ. And from now on, you'll be able to see Nightline live on a regular basis, and we're delighted. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.